is could you, since you looked into this, lay out sort of a timeline and how HB 769, the law written by our two state legislators and signed by the governor to affect specifically Spalding County, how did that come to be? And what effects does it have? Like, how does it work?
The law was introduced either 2 or 4 days before the end of the 2021 legislative session. It's my understanding that
You mean
a lot.
2020?
Yeah, yes, yeah, you're right. Sorry, 2020 session. Yeah, it's my understanding that a lot of laws, not necessarily like this, but I've learned from people familiar with how this works. I'm not very familiar myself with the ins and outs of the Georgia legislature, but this is what's known as kind of like a local kind of like pet project law. Like your local reps, they introduce a law that deals with the county, and like, let's be honest, somebody from Chatham County where I live isn't going to know what the specific needs of Spalding County are. So if the reps from Spalding County introduce a bill and they go, look, our county commission asked us to do this, we need to get this money because we need to fix these roads or whatever. The people from Chatham County are going to be like, all right, yeah, that's your deal, fine, whatever, I'll vote for that, right? So it's like this law, because it specifically deals with Spalding County, may have been easier to get past other legislators.
I do know, I'm pretty sure that the rest of the legislature doesn't have to vote on it. Only representatives from that county have to vote on it.
Okay.
And so it was specifically David Knight and Karen Mathiak who voted on this bill, because before redistricting, we only had two representatives.
Okay.
And then it was just the governor had to sign it and approve it.
Well, then there you go. I mean, that makes it even easier to do what they did. So they introduced the law right before the end of the legislative session, for whatever that's worth. I don't really know whether that was done on purpose to avoid people noticing it as much or what, but they do that.
That was after the election, right? The 2020 election.
After the 2020 election, which, Albert Solomon, Alfred Jester, and Alfred is the second Democrat on the county election board meeting. They both point out to me that ahead of the 2020 election, Democrats in Spalding County registered like 900 new voters, right? And a lot of those people were blacks who were going to probably vote Democrat, right? And so that happens, right? And then we all know what happened in 2020. Trump lost, Warnock
in Georgia.
He lost Georgia, which was huge. Now, he won in Spalding County by like 60%. I think if I remember right, Loeffler maybe barely squeaked by in Spalding County. But let's also remember, so if we're going to think of HB 769, I think you're right to point out, let's think about what happened in 2020. Democrats register 900 new voters. Trump loses Georgia. Loeffler barely squeaks by. A black Democrat is almost elected mayor of Griffin, the county seat, which
2019.
I'm sorry?
I said in 2019 was the mayor election.
Yeah, and you're right, in 2019. So, but all of this is occurring not in a vacuum. It is occurring in a place that has historically been, from my look at voting returns going back years, it's always been a Republican stronghold. So all these things happen, right? David Knight and Karen Mathiak introduced HB 769, which really effectively, the only thing it really does, the most important thing it does is it allows for this vote by, not just allows, but requires a vote by three of the Superior Court judges in Spalding County to choose the fifth member of the Board of Elections, right? So we know basically the way that it works is that the Republicans and the Democrat each get two people to put on the board, right? So now we are in gridlock. So there needs to be somebody to break the tie. Well, who is that person? Prior, as you pointed out to me when we first started talking about all of this, prior to HB 769, the Democrats and the Republicans on the board, they would put up their own candidates. The Democrats would put up Democrat candidates. The Republicans would put up Republican ones. oh, and guess what? We couldn't come to an agreement on who should be the fifth and tie-breaking member because everybody wants their side to win. You know what I mean? So they would flip a coin, right? Which actually seems like not a bad idea looking back on it, right? And so this law changed that. HB 769 said it's not going to be up to the board anymore to choose their own fifth member. It's going to be up to this three judge panel, and they need to choose the member. But how, why, or how, when, in what way? The law doesn't say. And so when the judges learn of HB 769, they go, well, I guess we have to do this now. How are we going to do this? And they have to come up with their whole own system of how to do this, which we can get into if you like. It's not very interesting. But so let's just think about that. Why would Karen Mathiak and David Knight want it to be so that 3 judges in Spalding County decide who the fifth member of the Board of Elections is? Why? Why not leave it up to the Board of Elections? That's a question that no one I've been talking to has been able to solidly answer, including Mathiak and Knight themselves.
I thought the claim was the board was corrupt, and so they want to have this law so that the judges pick the candidates. Because wasn't the previous chair Marcia Ridley?
No, she was not the chair. She was the election supervisor. So the election supervisor is like an administrative position, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like
they don't get a vote, but they kind of operate things.
Correct. Like you can't vote, but okay, so put it this way. Here's a way to think about it. You don't have to know anything about elections to be on the elections board, right? Because it's comprised of appointees from the political parties. And we all know that if you're a loyal person in your party, I mean, look at all the people Donald Trump put up in positions of power in his administration that had no expertise in literally anything that they did, and they were running federal agencies. So
literally his family members.
Right, exactly. But the election supervisor theoretically is supposed to be somebody who has experience administering the logistics of an election, right?
Yeah, which can I point out, the new election supervisor that got her job because Marcia Ridley lost her job due to HB 769 did not have previous training and had to be trained while running. Like while the 2021 elections were starting, she was still in training to do the job.
Correct.
Because she didn't know how to do it.
Correct. Because once again, the board does choose who the election supervisor is going to be. So it's up to them whether they want to choose Marcia Ridley, who has experience, did screw some things up, it looks like, or the current supervisor, who is Kim Slaughter, and had no experience, but also, to be fair, Jim O'Brien, one of the Democrats on the board, has said he's been surprised with how well she has been able to handle it. And really, I don't think that my understanding of it, at least in Spalding County as it is, in regards to Slaughter and Ridley, I don't really think that there's much of anything that they can do in their positions to really insert partisanism into their day-to-day job. My understanding is that it really is an administrative position. It's a nuts and bolts. Hey, you have the key to unlock the precinct at this time so that people can come in. Do we have the backup ballots if the machines go down? It's an administrative position that deals with logistics. But, so that being said, the people on the board that's what makes the tie-breaking vote so important, and that's what makes the people on the board so important, is because they are essentially constructing the rule book for the election supervisor to play by, right? So that's where their politics are a very big deal.